good guy, and he really does that stuff.
Well,
We gave him the
you must have the
ultimatum.
wrong
We're not
guy.
doing another meeting after 5 o'clock without a meeting.
Yep.
That's right. Is that what we're gonna make the policy?
Oh, we're on live.
Hey,
He wants us
we
before
could
live,
have
guys.
got money for council, we could have had food money. Hey,
I'm sticking with Tommy.
remember
Doesn't
that?
Linda
Hey,
need to donate $1
remember when
every
we
time
set
that phone goes
the
off?
Hey, guys,
Hey.
our,
budget,
lights
we
are
want
live.
money in there.
Oh, we're on live. We're on candid camera right now.
I agree with that.
on candid camera.
All right.
Are these all representing the same thing, just different aerial?
No, you can't stop me. I bite.
You got
It
your
is. I
nerve.
did.
You got your nerve. Interviews this morning and his goes off.
No, really.
After he just said upstairs, he's
Sure.
going down.
Tell him to give Brett one. Pass these down.
Here you go. Give
Hey,
Brett.
Justin.
Tony,
Here's what I have from the last
Mr.
time.
Roulette.
This one might be a little bit newer, Tommy.
Okay.
Okay, we call this work session to order, council work session. Mr. Fetty, can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilperson Tony Abbott.
Here.
Councilperson Justin Nobbert.
Sure.
Councilperson Tommy Roulette.
Present.
Councilperson Lenny Fryman.
Here.
Councilperson Brett Bondurant. Yes, sir. City Attorney Dale Weldon. Here. Mayor Kelly Malone.
Here.
And myself.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. I think that we had been discussing this for quite some time as a group, as far as what is the next thing we probably need to look at here in Lawrenceburg as far as enhancing the city, but as far as economic development. And I think everybody pointed to the Riverfront. Then it became obvious, when those of you that were part of the comprehensive plan for the last few months, even doing the community survey and involvement with the community, everyone sort of put the Riverfront at the top of one of the tops on their list as well. So that just solidified, I think, what we were looking towards. What we're going to do tonight, we've got two different engineering firms, one that handles the dry side of these kinds of projects and one that handles the wet side. When I say wet side, anything wet, okay? And we'll let them answer your questions. What I would like to do tonight is, okay, you got a preliminary, the same things you're seeing out here on the poster boards, but really this is your meeting to, okay, go to these engineering groups and say, hey, can we think about moving this to here and moving this over here, or can we expand this? And you guys know how I am about, how we handle budgeting and things like that, but so I'm not, it's not like we're doing this wish list, but I guess we are the first for this initial meeting. And then what we'll do is these companies go back and then they will get us I call it an engineer's estimate, cost estimate of what your wants would cost. Then you, council, and Mr. Fetty, can decide, okay, what is the appetite of what we want to see that riverfront looking like, and then if we need to trim it, we're going to trim it, but we want to make sure that we, do it keeping in mind the feasibility of what we want to try to get done here, and how we want to go about it. Some of these things that you see on these poster boards may look just great. This is your opportunity to ask questions about each, what that looks like down there. The one thing that I would ask, so we don't get bogged down tonight, because tonight really is just they need a picture of what you guys would like to see this look like. Okay? That's what tonight is. We don't have any cost figures for what you're talking about. We just can't do it that quick like that. But after you give them your list, after tonight, then they'll be able to come back with numbers. So as much as I'm a numbers guy, I'd like to know what it's going to cost by the time we get done tonight, but it's just not going to happen that way. So what I'd like to do, I think, is I'm going to introduce Randy Warman. He's with Structure Point. Let him introduce the group, and then I think we'll open it up to questions, and we'll keep it in a desired time frame.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Again, my name is Randy Warman. I'm the Business Development Manager for American Structure Point. Here tonight, we brought our team in here, dry side, wet side, and it's going to be a nice open conversation here, wants and needs, like the Mayor said. With me tonight, I'll just start from your right, going left. We have Nancy Lear, who's from Moffitt Nichols. They're the marina experts. They know everything wet, and they've done a great job. Been a great partner so far on all this. Matt O'Rourke is sat down here. Matt heads up our planning and economic development group at Structure Point. He came to us from Texas. He's been on your side of the desk, so he understands process and all those things. To my right is Ted Blyker. He is also from our planning group. He is our project manager for this. So all these people have been involved since the very beginning, have done a great job. We've had great internal discussions. They're here to answer your questions. You see some of the boards we've got up tonight, just work in progress. And at this point, I'll just turn it over to Matt, and he can start off on kind of the beginning of maybe the dry side and go a little deeper into what we've been working on.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's great to be here. Actually, probably turn it mostly over to Ted for the bulk of the conversation. A lot of what you're seeing on the dry side is concepts and ideas that he's come up with. We're really happy with the work he's put in already and doing a great job kind of iterating through just some initial concepts. And as we look at this, we're presenting this information nowhere near a final product this evening. Just want to say that it's more about getting some feedback based on some preliminary drawings, some ideas that we've come up with, really hearing what you want to see and what you think is feasible on the site. My role is more project management. When we do these type of projects, ASI likes to bring me in to make sure, having been in the public sector for 15 years, that I'm sort of wearing that hat, making sure we're understanding kind of that these processes can go in a lot of different ways. So kind of bringing that public sector experience with me to it. So with that, that's my role. I'll actually turn it over to Ted, and he'll take you through kind of what you see here on the dry side. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. So my name is Ted Blyker. I'm a landscape architect. So obviously a lot of my role and a lot of my perspective comes from an aesthetic side, even from a natural side. So a lot of the things that we look at, incorporate, a lot of those structures such as, our walkways and our access, as well as, what happens to the ecology of the site, what happens naturally along the site. So as you can see, we really had 3 separate boards, but really these 2 boards to my right, to your left for the most part, the ones that I think are most pertinent to our discussion here this evening. And obviously there's going to be a lot of back and forth between our team at American Structure Point and Moffitt and Nichols, just making sure that all of these different components work well together, right? This needs to be one project, everything flows seamlessly. So there's going to be a lot of that communication between the 2 of us to make sure that we are addressing your needs and fitting everything together nicely. Really, these 2 boards off to my right represent a couple main locations. And again, these are very preliminary designs and discussions that have been had over the years. Very briefly, many of you are probably very familiar with the Riverfront master plan that Structure Point put together about 4 years ago, I think it was. And a lot of these drawings for what we'll call the grand staircase, right, came from that document. How can we create a good connection to that dock space that has an essence of placemaking? We talk a lot about how does this provide some identity to Lawrenceburg, and how can we provide that from an experiential standpoint? As people access the site, what is the feeling they get? Is it comfortable to get to the site? Is it accessible? Those are going to be important things to us. So obviously, a lot of our discussion will be focused on components such as that. Likewise, we can even look to this board on the far right. It should be, I believe, the last page in the set of drawings that you have. Looking at that lower natural space within the riverfront. Is there a way to engage that? Is there a way to provide some function to that? And actually, is it number 3? Is it page number 3? Yeah. Sorry about that.
I pulled all my apart, so that's for sure.
Page 3.
You know, how can we take advantage of that natural space, understanding the conditions of the site? Obviously, it's got some very you know, big challenges with it, but how can we provide some use out of that and again help to enhance the essence of a place? So really, from a broad overview, those are the two aspects on the dry side that I would like for us to focus on this evening. And I guess with that, I'll go ahead and let Nancy talk a little bit about the wet side, and then we can, if we have questions or if we have any other discussion items, we'll be glad to address those. Mayor?
Let me just,
Yeah.
when I think, when I'd asked them to give us an overview of what we're talking about here, back, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, there was a master riverfront plan done that encompassed all the way to the trailhead, I believe, and beyond.
Beyond.
And down to the casino. And obviously, you know, we got some focal points that we're looking at here, and that was because I told them we need to take snippets of what was done then, because we're looking at the dock system that we had down there, and how, I mean, people don't even know you're in Lawrenceburg from the river. We have no signage, no aesthetics, nothing that, you know, shows us that you're Lawrenceburg if you're over there. If I told them earlier when I was talking, you know, you cross the bridge there at, you know, from Kentucky to Indiana. You look down this way. We all know approximately where it is, right? But you can't see anything, right? You know, we need to highlight our city, and I think that's what the focal point will be, is the area down here, but also below Ivy Tech and to the east of Ivy Tech. If you guys want to go further, you know, this could be phase 1. You know, if you guys want to look at, hey, we want a true marina at some point, that could be phase 2, whatever. But we just took pieces of the comprehensive riverfront plan that we knew that we had already talked about. We talked about it at retreat. We talked about it on and off in other different avenues. But so I just wanted to relay that to you guys.
And maybe as one point of reference as well, I mentioned this earlier. You know, on these boards, we have some different imagery and some different words at the bottom of these boards. Those pieces were taken from that master plan. So these are ideas that come from within the community, you know, as far as the group that had participated in putting that information together. And obviously, as you're completing your comprehensive plan, those desires and those needs, maybe those are shifting one way or another with the input you've received from the public. So our goal is to take those ideas, to take those priorities, and find a way to implement them into the overall aesthetic of this space and functionality of this space, especially with that wayfinding and placemaking component as a highlight.
So what kind of questions you guys have?
Sure.
I mean, just very informal. Just what do you want to see down here?
Well, if I wanted to see anything, it would be that picture right there.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I
What you got
mean,
there, Tommy?
but can we do something like that? I mean,
Well, they can probably answer that. I think anything can be done.
you know, because when you look at that, that looks like that would be accessible for everyone. Make it a lot easier for handicap and whatnot to get down there. Right now, we know it's hard for people like that to get down there. Body-able people, it's hard enough.
Yep,
But I mean,
absolutely.
So obviously, the major factor in all this is the ebb and flow of the water, literally speaking, you know, because
True.
you know, you have, just have pictures of Smale Park, you know, and if you've been downtown to Smale Park, Riverfront, Cincinnati, it's amazing what they've done. But you'll see it when the floodwaters come up, it still floods, part of it still floods. So having spaces that self-clean to an extent, I mean, I just, you know, I can imagine you start this project and suddenly we have this
Yeah, but is your,
eight flood event season where, you know, we might get a 1 or 2 flood event season,
Yep.
and now it's like, so how do we navigate, that's being the biggest factor for all of this, through that process? And assuming, because Cincinnati has Smale Park and there's other Covington, Newport, these areas, they're used to that, I'm sure there's a way that it kind of, they even slope, they self-clean, serpentine wall, you know, stuff like that, they aren't crazy maintenance disasters every time we get flood, especially being on that bend where we collect all that debris.
So maybe the first piece in answering that, obviously anything that we do within this area, it's going to be within the jurisdiction of the Army Corps, right? We talked a little bit about that. They're going to have a big influence on what is allowed, what's not allowed, and I think there has to be a bigger discussion than just this blanket statement that you can only do X per the Army Corps, right? And I think if we determine that vision, if we understand, not only what we want to see, but what is feasible and what makes sense, if we can approach them with that vision and start having those discussions, I think that's going to be the first step. And then obviously, some of that's in their hands, and there may be some creative ways around that. But yeah, there are a lot of components to to this picture, right, that we don't even see. And as we vet those ideas and as we create what that final vision looks like, there will be a lot more of that. We'll just have to encounter as we go.
Going back to Tommy's point initially, though, ease of access is a huge key, because right now there is no ease of access to get to the river, or from the river to street level. So I think Tommy hit it right there. I mean, yeah, that's a beautiful picture
Yeah.
Yeah.
and things, but then again, and then Justin just covered it. You know how it is around here. Just go down to the boat docks after it floods. How much cleanup our guys are down there. We got the fire trucks down there. We got everybody down there cleaning that place up. I was talking to these guys earlier about a half hour ago about, the area down there that could be maybe a camp spot. It would have to be primitive, but it would be good use of the land maybe, because it's going to flood. And really, you may only get 3 months a year out of that place on that part. But now the docks and the restaurants, we just got to have that ease of access to get there, right? And
Well, you
that's-
gotta have access to get there, but you also have to have a way to divert the
well,
wood,
Your debris, right?
tree, and the
I think
debris is
Nancy-
gonna be there.
I think Nancy
Is there
can
a way to
explain
do
that
that?
over on this far right one. That's a diverter out there.
Yeah,
That dotted line?
What we've
I'm looking
proposed
at that,
in
but
order to protect what we're putting out there is, it's basically a debris boom. And there's several different types, and some of it, depending on how far we have to go out into the river, we'll have to check with the Army Corps and the, Coast Guard and things like that, because there is a lot of barge traffic, and we don't want that to be a hindrance.
Right.
But, and even as we were speaking earlier, Mayor, we could even move this debris boom upriver a little bit more to protect some of that debris, so that camping area from a lot of that debris collection. Now, it's gonna collect way down here,
Right.
but at least it's not collecting right here,
Yeah.
where it is right now, and all along here, so.
Is that a significant structure? Is that just a floating anchored,
It's more of a floating anchored boom,
Mhm.
like almost more, it's harder than like a turbidity curtain, like they would use around, like dredging or putting a foundation in the water. It's sturdier than that, but that's sort of the idea.
Like we all know what a
Similar to
turbidity curtain is. Speaking Greek to us. If I said it right.
Just to break up the churning of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got it.
So there is a solution for that, and you guys are confident that we can do that and it's feasible?
yes, we are confident that it's feasible. I mean, obviously we'll do some coastal modeling just to make sure that we have the right length to it, so that, we're not hitting this back end or anything like that, but we're fairly confident that it's been done before.
If the debris is diverted, is there any other cleanup that's necessary from the rise and fall of the
Oh, yeah.
water?
Oh, yeah.
And how do you handle that?
You don't. That's the piece that we.
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I just don't know. There's some some natural wash that goes back, but there's always gonna be cleanup. That's what I mean, if, the camping area, I'm just calling that the camping area, whatever you wanna call it, or whatever you wanna use it for, but it'll have some natural wash, but there's always gonna be stuff. And,
Okay.
and what I also mentioned to these folks in that little time I got to talk with them was, you know, we know that if you build things, then you gotta feed it. You gotta make sure it stays nice. You know, we're all about that. We don't want anything that we put our names on that, you know, if we can't afford to do it, we shouldn't do it. Or if we can't keep it up, we shouldn't do it. But, that's why I think from the wet side to the levee is gonna be a challenge just for the cleanup part of it. Now, stuff on the levee, stuff overlooking the levee, on the dry side I'm talking. You know, and of course, all the wet side would be fine, but the dry side that's a challenge.
If you take this time of the season, primitive campsite, there's 40 spots there, that's an income generator. I mean, because that place would be full right now. And people just being this close to access to the
Absolutely.
city. So I mean,
Absolutely.
at
I
12,
agree.
15 bucks a night for a tent or whatever I mean, yeah, we're gonna have to have someone collecting money and you have to pay the clerks or whatever it is. Mark might have to work a few more hours, collect the money, but,
We'll just get him an office down there.
Well, and isn't it fair to
We
say,
a
walked
chainsaw.
down there today, and it could be as simple as just a concrete pad and one of those, charcoal grill things you
Yeah.
see at parks.
right.
You know, and like a number stake that says this is.
well, we just had a river sweep, so even if we didn't wanna do any of this, it would still be good to have the boom and figure out a way to keep it clean,
Well, I don't think
even now.
conversation that, I mean, I think it's been avoided in the past because of the hurdles that try to get over with the Army Corps, with the debris and everything. And I think this is a valid conversation that we all know that we have an asset on that side of the levee that is amazing, that is underutilized, and we don't have good access. I lived in Aurora for most of my life. You come down off the hill and you look at this beautiful river in the fall coming up. And it's just picturesque every morning, the sun rising. We just don't have that access here. So to be able to have an access point in that gangway point number 4 going straight out of Walnut Street, and it's beautiful, you know, open. I mean, I think that could be amazing. And I guess to your point, Mayor, I guess as we move things east, it would better encompass the other green space. Is that why we kind of would move east as opposed to west? I mean,
Initially, that's why I thought that would be the natural part of expanding your phase one, whatever you guys want to call it, or however much you want to take on. Yeah, that's why I thought going that direction, you could encompass that area. But I had also told them that, you know, we had a swing project that we were gonna do on the levee, right? And we couldn't even get people to bid on it because at the time that everybody was busy, nobody would bid, right? But this could all be encompassed into that, and in addition to some things on the dry side, right? To help enhance that whole aesthetic look from the river, looking this way, and from here looking to the river.
Can you kind of describe a little bit of the walkways, like 4 and 5? I know one's straight out from Walnut, and looks like the other one's down towards the area that,
Campground?
the other way. I know the access that we have right now to the docking system is the other way, correct? And I don't know what they're called, those big pylons they tie the docks to. I mean, are you gonna be able to use what's already there? I mean, have you got that far into the project, looking at things?
That far, and I know that we wanna try and use as much of what is there if it's structurally sound to be able to use it, but then that would need to be like inspected so that we make sure that we're not putting something new on something old that's gonna deteriorate in 10 years.
So describe like the walkway, like you visualize it, number 4. Is it gonna be like a straight down, or?
Well, so we'll still have to meet ADA compliance for all of that at normal tide level. So,
if that's where they make your normal tide.
yes, that's pretty much about where you are right now is probably like your normal water level. And then you have, up from that is your different year storms, your 5-year storm, 10-year storm.
Is that like a 80-foot walkway, number 4 right now?
Yes, so about 80 feet is about all we can do for ADA. So tying into their side with knowing that that's how long it needs to be, or that's how long it can be for ADA, is an important piece where we're gonna have to same with the one coming down Walnut Street. Exactly where it ties in is gonna be very dependent on what they can do on the levee side or the dry side as well.
So kind of doing that, you would be at least, you know, looking at doing the things that's straight in from number 4 right there on Walnut State, on the land side. You would definitely probably have to do that to be able to do the docking system to,
Yes.
for number 4.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, we could definitely, I mean, you can almost piecemeal it together too. You know, phase this project in that you do number 4, number 1 together. You can put one restaurant, and then you can come back and do 5 and the second number 1 and do the other restaurant as well. We can phase it however we need to.
Is there compliance of getting in and off the bridge, the landings, with how many restaurants versus occupancy, that you have to have 1 or 2 egress, ingress points?
There are, I don't know them all off the top of my head, but when we were looking at it, we felt like two egresses would be best in case there's a fire, emergency,
Yep.
something like that. And we can make number 4 much bigger, so you know it's that main entrance to it, and make number 5 smaller as it's just a normal access point. But we also thought that having it closer over here to Ivy Tech and the parking garage and things like that, it would make
Oh,
it
nice,
a little
yeah.
bit easier for people.
So how does it elevate with the water
On those-
when it's up and when it's down?
on those-
Is it gonna be to
It's
where
on
you
like
can
a
use it
pivot.
all year round, or is it gonna be?
Oh, it'll be on a pivot point, and there will be there will be a time where it might be the opposite direction. But that's something that we'll have to look into based on where we put that on the levee, where we put that.
You're talking about the docks themselves?
I'm talking about the gateways to get up,
Yeah.
to go in and go.
So, the mean
Walkway.
ADA, 80 inches higher than the deck height of the barge is where that bottom base.
Right, I understand that.
80 inches, so just under 7 feet higher, and that's where it's gonna have to pivot from, so, which is pretty low. I mean, that,
Yes.
they may not, you think they're ADA compliant with that other one, or is it a little bit, it's probably 1.5 to 12?
Well, I know in Covington over there, they had a boat on the river, and when the river did get up high, they couldn't have access, cause it was taking the gateway.
Well, and that's some of I've definitely seen pictures of the gangway that's out there now has been underwater before as well. So it is something that could happen depending on where we put that egress.
Don't forget what you're looking at here. You're looking at number 4 there. That's at water level.
Yeah,
Okay.
right now that's at
Let's just say, for
higher lane
instance,
level.
what if these smart people could figure out, okay, how do I get from street level, coming off Walnut Street, from street level down to that dock? Is it an elevator? Is it an outdoor escalator that's covered? You know, up and back, you know? I think there's probably things that haven't, you know, that could probably be thought of. I don't know. It might already do it in some places on waterfronts. I don't
Probably
know.
want to avoid any hydraulics or electrical things on the wet side of the levee, don't you think, with regards to exterior, like a escalator system or something like that?
We already got electrical on the now.
No, I mean like moving underground
Oh,
parts.
no. I'm anticipating, this is just me because I don't know, just based upon what we found out with Flaherty and Collins. There's not a lot you can do on a levee. And I know you're saying, you know, hey, let's have those talks, and I agree, we do need to have those talks with them. But what I'm saying though is that, you know, a lot of it probably is above ground. You know, am I making sense? I may not be making sense, but I've been thinking about this for years, about how do we get people, because that's the biggest complaint I get. It's not accessible. So how do we get people from street level to the dock to street level? And I just had this in my mind, you know, there's gotta be a walkway out and an elevator down, or, you know, that you can, you know, satisfy ADA, it was, you know, all that stuff. I don't know. I'm just,
Well, the longer the ramp, the higher it can go up, so I mean, just move the ramp point back and you're getting a foot of elevation.
I don't know all
per
that
foot,
stuff, so you
yeah,
guys do, but, yeah, I don't know.
I got a question. with the docking system. I noticed that you got 2 restaurants, and I know that you could probably configure this a little bit different, stuff like that. Looks like you got a big party boat there. And then you've got the 5 boats over on the side. What kind of access, I mean, how many boaters do you think could come up on this docking system and either go to one of these restaurants in the summertime or be able to get on the 4 and come into town to eat? I mean, how many boats are we looking at? Or is that what kind of 3 is down there, eventually put something extra for boats to park on?
We can kind of do a little bit of anything. It's very modular, what we have here. So we could put more transient access on this side. This is the river cruise boat.
Like a B&B.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah. But we could even move that off-site if we wanted and utilize the other access point that's actually there right now, which was one of the options that we proposed originally. This can be even more transient boating tie-ups. If this wasn't here, this could all be transient boating. It all depends.
Yeah. That's a good point, because 5 boats.
Right.
I was like, where am I gonna
That's
park
all
the
we can
boat
get
at?
down there now.
Well, I know, but this place,
Somebody's gonna have this
pops
spot.
like this with 2 restaurants there, I can see there
Oh.
from Cincinnati flocking to the
It-
west side on the
Packed, I'm
boats.
telling you.
But
And
correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, but there's a possibility that, okay, if you can, if it's out far enough, you've got boats that you put on this side, but you could also put boat slips in on the
So-
other side.
We would rather not go perpendicular to
Uh-huh.
the current of the river. It makes
Oh.
it very difficult to dock your
I don't
boat.
know.
And
Good
it-
point.
And it's a big stress point on the finger piers and the docks that go in between the boats.
But you could have additional parking,
We could
say
have
down
addition-
here
That whole thing could be additional transient.
and here,
Mhm.
That riverboat's only gonna be there a couple times a month.
if
at
that,
max,
yeah, who knows?
You know,
Right.
Yeah,
and
no, that's a good point,
so.
good point.
Exactly, and so this whole
That's a
side
good point.
could be, we could put a whole nother, I mean, we can, that is one of the notes I took from our meeting earlier, is more transient boating, so that's something we'll look at later when we go into design effort.
Could you tie up to the restaurants themselves? Boats?
If the restaurants had cleats, you can tie up to anything. Now, it might be harder to get on and off, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
They're
what their
all set
docking
up.
system is, how they set that up, yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely don't
so-
wanna have a boat between you and the river. That's 3 people who eat on the restaurants is so they can see the river. You don't wanna have a boat sitting in front
Probably
of
sit pretty high though, they could probably, I mean, I don't know how high the barge things sit. So my biggest reference point for this is the Beer Cellar and Hooters in Newport. And they
Okay.
have this awesome pavilion, because we go for live music, and you could just sit out on this big, not to detract from Civic Park, and we know that's we all love Civic Park, but
Yeah.
they had this big pavilion, and appreciate your, informing us of how, the modular style of things, and how you keep them parallel with the flow of the river. Because I kind of imagined a larger square entertaining area in between the 2 restaurants, similar, are you guys familiar with that project at all?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a really neat dock system that goes down there and live entertainment. Oh, yeah, so you know it well, yeah. We probably ran into each other. So, well, no, our attorney was probably down there too.
Yep.
But, yeah, so that was just my thought. So that's good to have that understanding of its best as far as for
For
stress
docking,
points.
yes, stress points. I mean, and if we wanted, we could do a whole nother 2 sets of those out and make that landing area bigger to do more things on it. It's just all what you all want to do, your vision
What-
for this.
What if, and I had a simple concept in my simple head months ago about this, was a large rectangular dock system, 2 restaurants on either side and boat parking out front, or on the riverside, right? I think that's what you're talking about, a larger area for in between. Is it possible, and maybe you've addressed this too, but if you have this rectangular dock system, on each side of that dock system, to have your barge restaurants going north-south
going like this direction?
Yes, and the reason I say that, and it depends upon how far these dock modulars go out. It would be, yeah, I don't know. I mean, is that a possibility? And then you had all this for your boat parking.
You're just asking for a Jeff or your Ruby fiasco there.
What's that?
You're just asking for a Jeff.
Jeff Ruby fiasco? Yeah, break away from it.
You would be going against the flow of water that way, wouldn't you?
That's not as bad as just single finger piers, because these are more,
They're moored in there.
yes, yeah, they're a little more structural in there. It's something we can look at, it's all gonna depend on how far out in the river we can go.
Right.
And the further you go out in the river, the bigger that debris boom gets.
I like the design, kind of how you have it laid out. I wonder, is it something that, you know, if, say we pull the trigger, we like this design and we realize, man, there's so many people packed on that, we're reaching capacity, we're turning people away, we don't have enough room for boats.
Can you add to
Can we
it?
add another barge to it and expand that deck in the center and then?
It's something that we can plan for,
Yeah,
right?
so,
Because the utilities are all probably gonna come down this main pier and go through the barges out to, because we have full utilities on these restaurant barges. So that's something that we'll have to think about, is making sure that we have enough utility connections for all of the barges. But yeah, it's something we can definitely take into consideration.
How far out do we own into the river? Indiana? Where's the state line at?
Halfway.
It's in the-
Halfway?
And some of it'll be
what they
where
say.
where the barge traffic goes and
Not halfway.
Coast Guard navigation.
I'll be honest, if you look at how far out we're at right now, and I think I've shared this, barge traffic gets pretty close to the Riverwatch restaurant.
Yeah.
In fact, remember the tiki bar that sunk?
one in the bottom of the river.
The camera showed how close that barge was to that. I mean, I'm talking within 15, 20 feet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That's
wow.
pretty close for,
Really?
Yeah,
for
it
bars.
was very
Well,
close.
the topo does not give us very much room. Kentucky comes within about 200 feet of the coast.
Well, and I'm thinking, you know, if the concept was to make this a larger deck area, can you go further this way?
Can you go
In-
closer into the shore?
Yeah, I don't
Some of
know.
that will also depend on how deep it is.
Exactly.
To make sure that
Yeah.
the barge is sunken on the bottom.
Yeah.
But that is something that we can definitely look at once we get, the bathymetric survey out there.
It's not
How
very,
close deep.
it's not very deep
It's
out
not
there.
here, right? I could see sitting
Was
at
that-
the table and it's, the barge is dry docked.
'Cause that used to be dry
That
land.
wouldn't be good.
That wouldn't be good.
But a floating dock where people are would be less PSI,
Yes.
and it may not,
Yes, it wouldn't,
you don't have a
be as
kitchen in there and all the
Exactly.
building structure on it, so potentially the floating part of the dock could be a little.
Well, because all of these are tied together.
Yes.
Right.
they'll
Yep.
tie together. And they'll be moored somehow. That structural mooring is not in here yet, so.
Is there anything similar to what you're proposing in the country, or what's the most similar that you've seen that these guys could look at?
Like way out west California, we can just fly out.
Yeah, well, we look on the internet, look at it.
I have no
on the
interest in
internet.
Yeah.
California.
I see where you're.
I don't know, I've never been, but I wouldn't mind going one time, especially if the mayor was paying.
I'd
for
say
it.
we go towards Bahamas.
There you
Oh,
go.
now.
Surely they
Way
got
off
some docks
point.
That'll
there.
work.
Way off point.
Well, like Justin was saying, I mean, the good and bad news is, I mean,
Like the way you're thinking.
the good way of looking at, I'm sure Mike and Messmore have thought about this, is, you know, they just lost the Ludlow Bromley Yacht Club and the Jeff Ruby waterfront. So I mean, that's a lot of business that
Right.
needs to go somewhere. But also, those things got destroyed for a reason. So learning from their lessons, learning from their mistakes, but also taking advantage of that business opportunity.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to see how much going with number 3 for the boat parking, and include that in this. Because what I'm seeing, there's not a whole lot of
More boat parking.
boat mooring. in here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with that too.
How far could you extend 6 down, the transient part? Could you take it all the way down to?
I mean, you
I
could take
know.
it, well, because you gotta get the barge in,
6 is where the little boats are.
Yeah,
Could it keep one down the river?
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, you're saying just extend that little dock
Oh,
out?
just-
Yeah,
just keep
that,
it
and then
on the
eventually they'd be able to park on both sides.
Yeah, you can just park at the end of the bike trail and hop on there.
We'll go all the way down to Aurora.
Yeah.
So-
Make the bend and.
So one concept I know that was shared at one point, was this inlet further to the east, right? Right up next to the casino. Maybe there's an opportunity to provide some additional parking, boat parking in that area. I don't know if that's something that, is feasible. I mean, it is a little bit further of a walk, but, it's for those events where you need that additional capacity.
Yeah, overflow, yeah, I mean,
overflow.
Yeah, but let's not lose fact that every time we add something to this, dollar signs.
but
I
you're the
mean-
one that told us to dream and.
Oh, and I'm all about that.
The textbook.
I thought you'd dream about, okay, what this could be looking like to add more boat parking and like you had said, make it a little bigger or whatever. And Tony said, add number 3, which now we're talking about a whole nother marina.
What was the marina on the plan, the 4 or 5 year ago plan? That was the part of the marina connected to
Yes.
the boat?
Yeah.
It was mainly to, right next to where they pulled out the old boat, over in that cove.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was.
That's something that
Oh,
is expandable. Is that fair to say, Nancy, that, as we see
Yeah.
that we have a design here, we don't wanna underbuild it, from the get-go, but we don't wanna build this gigantic thing that, either that's
Yeah, and it would be fun.
break the bank. I mean, they're gonna come. I mean, I think we're all pretty convinced we have some traction here in the city, but
Well, in our region, even downriver, we've got a bunch of small but really successful marinas. So that's,
Yeah, true.
that are packed and look good. And, I mean, that might be the best opportunity for public-private and have some private investment where we don't have to pay for so much of the marina.
I met with it was probably, I'm gonna say back in June or something, I was over at Lanny's coffee shop. And it was 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and there was 4 people sitting in there, and I had my mayor's shirt on. They said, "Are you the mayor here in Lawrenceburg?" I said, "Yeah," and it was a Thursday morning. They said, "Well, we live upriver, I don't know, Dayton, Kentucky or whatever, but we've got, 40-foot boats, 35 and 40-foot boats. We know a group of us, we take off and go down the river a lot of times, once or twice a month, and we're looking for places. We've stopped here a number of times whenever we can get our big boat down there at the docks. But he said, if you build it, they'll come. And I think that you hit the head, Mark, and Tony did right there with, we gotta add boat capability parking. Not as much overnight parking as transient.
Transient,
Yeah.
So what size boats are typically pulled up? Anything?
25.
25,
25.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, 20 to 30 foot is probably
Ski
your
boats,
average.
yeah, probably.
And you'll get a couple of those 60-foot cigarette boats
Oh, yeah,
every once in a while, but.
yeah, you will.
If the Robinson boys are out.
Like, yeah, they're pretty plentiful on on the river.
Oh, really?
Those and jet skis.
Yeah.
I guess similar.
Yeah.
So you could almost do, if we did the 3 as transient, right, you could do transient out here, and then they have like little floating things that you could do for even jet skis.
Oh,
for-
oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they just basically like ride them right up on, or you could even do a jet ski rental out there, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
Well, it's
That's
not
neat.
crazy to think, hey, come move your family to downtown Lawrenceburg. You can have a boat slip with your house. I mean,
Good. Anything's possible. We need to give them the ideas, like we're doing, and then let them go and bring it back and.
I think we have a strong framework with what's been presented. I mean, so we're still just only talking about the wet side.
Yeah, I know,
The
I was
other
just,
stuff's
when we went
awesome.
back to
There's a
the,
lot of
Right
really
side.
cool stuff I
Right.
think let's talk about tonight with the other stuff, but I think the concept, and if we all agree that this looks good, but also consider we may want to expand, so as we can kind of add our Legos onto it, build onto it in our different parts, and that we just would want to make sure we plan for that we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into this great success and then not be able to capitalize on that
Good point.
in the future. So, I love the idea, I love the accessibility through the levee. That's, and I think what you said before, Mayor, that's like the critical element of just that welcoming. You know, we just have to, we're in this bowl like New Orleans, and we have this beautiful river that we're
Yeah.
connected to, so.
Well, I was talking about using the structures that are already there, these big round pads, that may be where we put lighting and things like that, or,
It's really dark down there. You guys ever go down there at night?
wayfinding, we
Really
were
dark.
talking about a lighthouse
Grew up
earlier.
there.
Would they make a foundation for a Ferris wheel? Foundation?
I knew that was gonna come up during
That
the,
before he did,
during the
but
dry
I knew it was
side
gonna
talk.
happen.
Oh, that'd be the
I
first.
knew
thing
that
to
would
talk
be
about.
up on there.
You'd be able to see it from the bridge.
Yes, you would.
What, that'd be advertisement, big L on it.
We hear it every meeting, that's what we had to.
Big L for Lenny.
Yeah.
But we
Big
can,
L.
you know, as long as they're not in the way of the boat traffic, we could use them for lighting, spotlights, signs. We can figure out how to use them as long as they're not in the way.
Well, you brought up a good point, though. I'd like to see something, I mean, it's nice, the dock area, you got it, but where you got people setting and stuff, if there's a way to make it bigger, or make it round looking or something, you know, instead of just, we're just sitting there on a, I don't know how wide them docks are, or them barges are, but
About 140 feet.
140 foot wide?
Yeah.
Long.
A
How long?
Long,
Wide.
wide's probably what,
Long.
20,
I think
30,
they're,
Was it 36 feet?
30, something, yeah.
something, I have all those numbers right now.
Because that will tell you how wide the docks are.
But you know what I'm saying, if we had something in there, make it look like a little island thing, when your people come out from the restaurant, they could sit out there
Yep.
in the middle.
Yep.
I don't know how you would, this is out of my league, running all this stuff, but I mean, it'd be something to think about,
I agree.
to work
You're
it
allowed
like an
to
island,
dream.
everybody be out,
Right.
sitting
Allowed to
outside.
dream.
Yeah,
This is the only night you're allowed to dream, Lenny.
yeah, really.
To your point, and to your, both of you and with the mayor, if, and I like the kind of way it flows here, but if they were, if the barges were perpendicular heading north to south, I think that a lot of, if I was going to eat at a restaurant, I wouldn't necessarily want to be in the bars. I'd want to be out on the patio overlooking the river
Right.
Right?
as I was sitting there. And really, barge number, was it number 2, you know, there's really not a lot of patio area to sit on and be, you know, served before you get into the walkway, gangway number 4 coming on. Now, the other barge number 3, you have that whole patio that could be serviced from that one restaurant.
Yeah, because the way, from here, like on the number ones, you really wouldn't be able to sit on there and eat and enjoy the river. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's good.
Unless
I think
we,
that's what Lenny was,
yeah, like
That's
Lenny was
well,
talking
yes.
about, yeah.
You know, because they could service, if you got two
Yeah.
barges, one on each end, one service half his side, one the other
Yeah.
side, and they could be sitting outside and it'd be like a little
Yeah.
island instead of just, you're sitting there on something that just looks long.
Is that more protective element, like where number 2 is attached to the patio, number 1? Is that keeping it onto the riverside because of the depth and not being, you know, 150 feet out because you know, the barge is gonna be going
No,
out to the
this is
shore
just
dry?
how it came through with the iterations that we went
Okay.
through. I know that we had shown you some before that we were kind of in the rectangular area here, and then we had barges going this way as well for
Yeah.
restaurants. I mean, we can revisit that.
I think, if I've heard everybody correctly, I think it's a matter of, they want a bigger area for gathering,
Okay.
and the 2 restaurants running north-south. And keeping this out here for boat traffic. Is that what you were saying, and you were?
I think it's an iteration worth looking at. I mean,
Something to look at,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like a little bit of how do you have the best of both worlds? How do
Yeah.
you have, you know, the restaurant here, but then it's blocking your view of the river
Yeah.
versus flip-flopped and just the aesthetics
Good
of
point.
everything going the same direction. So, I mean, it's just,
What if we put 2 where number 3 is? Put the restaurant over here at the end.
And that's what, honestly, that's what we originally had thought is, you know, we had 2 here, 3 was, possible future barge location for a 3rd restaurant, or transient boating, or
Well, if we moved that to number 3, then we would have more boating spaces in the front.
Good point.
Is that a typical barge size, like 40 by 120, something like that? I mean, is that?
Yes, these are a typical barge
Okay.
size, yeah.
And then that's kind of how you based our patio sizes off of, just mirroring those, okay?
I think what they did is the restaurant sizes, they took the River Watch, the size of it, because they figured out how big it was, and just mirrored that.
Okay,
And then the number ones, they're normal barge sizes.
just with flat
Yeah.
decks. Okay.
Can you have more on the dock itself? I mean, is the dock as wide as it could be? I mean, could you have like parklets or like a gazebo, or could you engage that where people can walk and sit and eat and
No,
have
you can put
music?
anything you want on that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, at one
all
point, we
money.
had a-
Well, I mean, that's a cheap gathering space, because it's an open spot, and as long as
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
a
at one
chair.
point we had, what did we have, a amphitheater out there, a stage where you could do anything, I mean, there's.
I don't know
there's
about
ice
all that,
skating
but-
rinks, there's floating pools,
You know, you was talking about that Ferris wheel, but if we could put that in there with bubbles, where people
Okay.
sit in, they could go
All
down
right.
in the water, come up.
Lenny,
Next, he's gonna wanna do a coal barge with the double decker basement.
yeah, infinity pool out to it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, I think you got some ideas on the wet side.
Yes.
All right, if we could move to the dry side, I think we've talked a little bit about the camping area, about, hey, it needs to be pretty primitive.
Primitive, right? Something-
And, yes, but I think, and correct, you guys, I mean, let's talk about the levee piece. What you guys want to see the top of the levee really look like up there.
Is that the parking area for Ivy Tech, the top of parking garage?
No, it would be the levee area, but you can have like pump-outs, you could have a number of things.
Is this rendering the one, is this on top of Ivy Tech's parking garage, this rendering?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
one of the,
but we don't have any room up there anymore.
yeah, I don't know if we want to spend a ton of time on it. I don't know how much interest there would be for something like that, but the intent was, in that Riverfront master plan, it was identified, there's a ton of parking, right? Way more parking than, people felt was necessary, especially at the time, maybe even, considering future. Is there an opportunity to take that space and provide some kind of an amenity, right? Some kind of way, you've got people that are elevated, you've got a structure that's already built, we don't have to worry about tapping into the levee at all. Is there a way to retrofit that in some aspect to make it a gathering space? Something that could connect to that boardwalk area, if you will. And so, we had just looked at a couple of options, concepts. Maybe that's a temporary location for, food trucks are popular these days.
Can't get them up there.
Can't get them up there. So obviously there's some.
We
there's some
tried to
different
look at places to put different things like that, but here, let me,
Yeah.
so we don't spend a lot of time on something,
Right.
but we can if you want to reinvent something, but we already noticed this year, we had one of our Thursday night music on Rivers, we filled the parking garage, including the top. We had 2 other outdoor events that we filled the parking garage with, and people were complaining there was not enough parking already. Now, that's sporadic, right? That's not everyday stuff. But you also realize that St. E is in the process of, or finishing off another 8,000 square feet of that office building.
Oh, here?
Yes,
I
that they're gonna be using for, and they're gonna need that parking on top of the garage as well. So I think, that was all part of the initial, Riverfront comprehensive plan or whatever. But it's sort of, I think it's taken care of itself.
Right.
And I didn't wanna, and I don't wanna be a negative person about it, because, I mean, I think it could have been some pretty neat things up there, but I'm talking about the dry side, from the water to the,
Exactly.
Right.
Not to mention that this is about 4 times what our $1 million project was gonna be last year, so.
yeah.
I like that myself.
Yeah.
I think that looked neat up there.
What's that?
This,
Last year, what you presented to us.
Yeah.
that $1 million project,
Mhm.
I think that'd be perfect up there. There's really not a whole lot, there's seating for the people to swing and stuff, but it's more to look over the river, and then they would come this way if they wanted entertainment
Eat
thing.
and stuff.
And that's what they think this is gonna address, that's what I think the mayor thinks this is gonna address that in way more than that issue of having places to sit and walk, sidewalks and.
Well, that would go hand in hand though.
I like the idea of having places up on the levee for people to be able to jump in a swing and overlook the river. I really like that. I don't know if it would satisfy all that or not, Justin, I don't know, but I think it's open, you know, whatever you, I mean, there was talk, years ago about, having 3 or 4 bump outs that, like concrete bump outs that from the, up top of the levee and bump out, you know, big concrete, you know, sort of like where the clock tower is. But it's a bump out would be out, you know, 2 or 3 on each side of the clock tower where you could put picnic tables, you could put chairs, swings, whatever. You know, aesthetically, we want to, I just keep going back to, you know, aesthetically, I'd like to see the dry side look inviting from the riverside. I know you're talking about, I agree. I just don't know if but I like that, Tommy, I like that picture
But,
too.
and
That's
if I may,
Yeah.
you know, and I know we probably haven't done a study, and no one can control Mother Nature. So we don't know how many times we will really flood, but have we ever sat back and thought, what is our average flood stage
Yeah.
during the flood season? So if we were to do something similar to this, could we do the lower part in just concrete, not having greenery, but when the flood waters go back down, try to form it to where it is somewhat self-cleaning,
Yeah.
and then we do clean it.
I
I mean,
I like
to me, that would be real, and I know it's gonna be a lot of money, but it would be a lot more inviting, and I think
Yeah.
you're gonna get a lot more people if you have, and I'm gonna use like Rising Sun. Theirs is somewhat similar to what we're looking at here. I know when I'm down there, the wife and I will walk lower to the water,
Yeah.
because you can't.
Yeah. Well, it would tie in with the camping area, that whole
Right.
walkway.
And then if you wanted greenery, you could put it on the upper level to where it may not get flooded,
Mhm.
you know, just food. for
I
thought.
like keeping it in there. I like that picture.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
it's
like
just more, in my opinion, from inside the city and outside off the water, it's more inviting.
Yep.
You know, if
Absolutely.
I'm walking to that floodgate and I look down there, I'm like, wow, that looks interesting. I mean, again, I realize it's gonna be a lot of money, but what are we after here at the end?
Well, that's a big impact on the levy too, so that's gonna be a big one you guys be wrestling with the Corps on.
I'll start poking some people.
Poking the bear.
Poking that bear, asking some of those questions. Yeah.
When do we bring in LCD, Shelley?
We'll let them take care of, Army Corps, and, they'll work with the LCD.
Okay.
They'll have to work with them.
We all like this. The thing is, we're all thinking the same thing. I can just tell what's going through our mind. The mud, the debris every
Well,
year.
Well,
Bree's gonna be covered by the,
I think
mostly
that-
by that.
that deflector I call or whatever, will
Eliminate.
take
That's
a
gonna
lot
take care of
of
a lot of it out of
the
there?
Yes.
big stuff. And I think Tommy's talking about if it's formed in a way that maybe a lot of natural washing.
Yes,
You know, there's always gonna be cleanup, guys.
right.
Levee, you know, with the flooding, there's always gonna be cleanup, but it would be, what, I'm sorry?
There's a lot of geese down there now.
Oh, yeah, there is.
Well, and you know,
The ordinance.
Does it have,
geese.
have a self-cleaning geese,
Start arresting those geese.
geese
for
poop?
some of those more natural areas, there's some ways that can be thought out so that, you know, even in that period of time after the floodwaters have receded and there's some cleanup that needs to be done, it can be designed in such a way that the natural aesthetic, it'll fit in until that's able to be done. You know, I mean, right now it works, it's grass, it's some overgrown weeds and things that get cut down occasionally, it looks like, and the debris collects up there. But if there's a way to do that with a little bit more purpose, you know, using some of those natural grasses and things that'll do just fine in those conditions, you know, there's some ways that that can be treated to still make it look nice, even during those periods where it needs some cleanup. And a lot of those more natural, you know, type landscapes can be such that they don't require typical maintenance like a lawn would, or, you know, an area that has to go out and be mowed. A lot of those times, those things are deterrents to geese as well. You know, there are a lot of ways to think through that. So, would just, you know, encourage that to be an option as we look at what does that, you know, what does that enhancement look like?
Sure.
Ted, are those buildings at an elevation that would be above a typical flood plain, the buildings that are in the grassy area of the primitive campground? Or is that, or they would be kind of open air, or?
So currently, we've got some of those existing structures right now. Do those get within the floodplain? I mean, really, those footprints are the exact same locations as what's out there. So the purpose would be to reuse structures as best as possible, if nothing else, reuse foundations. I guess that's a bigger question to you guys. If you've noticed, do the floodwaters get up to those structures? Is that an issue?
I think that they regularly stay below them from what I've seen during flood stages. But another thing we gotta consider is a new Csx crossing, because they eliminated that at this new.
Yeah, but that's, they're willing to,
Okay.
discuss that. They told us that when they closed it. Now, things have changed
They
since then.
didn't replace that. That's the one they tore out, they didn't replace.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually if they open one, you have to close another one.
Is that what it is?
That's what they like to do.
The other thing, Mayor, to consider, and you guys might be able to help answer this, is some of the, what's the trails funding that just came out, this big grant program?
Ready?
The Ready, but it's.
We've talked about that.
Yeah. Furthermore, do you know you did the comprehensive trail study, there's the new grant program, what's it called?
I'm doing.
Oh, it's gonna-
Next Level Trails.
Yeah.
So if we can incorporate trails through this, then maybe there might be some funding available through that program as well that would help offset some of these other expenses.
I think there's some funding through like transient boaters and things like that in Marina as well that we can look into some grants.
We'll take any kind of funding.
Any.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
If we could offset $1 million in this with some grant from some next level, and
Maybe if we could offset half the price of the project.
yeah, that would be nice. But with your ideas right now, we're upward of 10 million now, Mayor, so.
Not my ideas, your ideas.
Something we often do in our comprehensive planning work, trail work, economic development, as we always go through and we'll comb through all available economic development and or other grant opportunities, just provide a list and how they line up with different pieces of the project. We certainly do something like that as part of this project. Yeah,
Good.
we make that part of our research effort.
Great.
And we've talked through that anyway with our connector to Greendale. I mean, if we can incorporate that into the whole project and be able to access some of those funds, it'd be great.
I think it's long overdue myself. I
I
really
agree
do.
with you.
I had this vision back in '96 when gaming came. I mean, we built the amphitheater, the LCD did,
Yeah.
and that really didn't work. What a shame.
I told him, Tommy, I told the group here that's here, I think this has been thought of through a lot of different administrations. And nobody just really jumped on that horse and ran with it. And I think, when you guys brought it forward and said, hey, this is I think this is one we can all get behind and things. And then obviously when the comprehensive plan survey and all that others came back and said, this is one of their top things that we don't, that we need to be taking a look at, it just solidified it for me. The question I have from you guys is, and there may be more questions up here, but do you feel like you got enough information from what you've heard from this group to go back and come up with a fairly hypothetical rendering of what we were looking for? And some kind of that engineered cost estimate or not? Is there some missing pieces of it?
I think we certainly have some valuable feedback that can help us kind of steer this towards that final vision, absolutely. Obviously, there's going to be some give and take depending on what certain government agencies allow, don't allow.
Absolutely. I know that.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think we do have some good direction. Nancy, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think, just in a quick glance, I think we're in agreement. We should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have 2 or 3 options we can come up with and present, and then, kind of move forward with the favorable one, making it expandable and things like that, so, yeah.
Well, then, talking about what you just mentioned, yeah, if we run into a hurdle, say it's with the Army Corps, we don't know, right?
Right.
Then we can take a look and say, hey, where can we go with some of these, do something different to try and enhance sort of what we need to try to accomplish with that.
Absolutely.
But I think we need we need a starting point. And I think that if we can get 2 or 3 optional starting points that we can maybe even take, a piece of this one and put it over here with this one and, mix and match, and then we sort of have like an à la carte pricing structure. And we know it's a very loose pricing structure when you get to that.
Right.
How about that?
We get that.
Yeah, yeah.
Fluid,
No pun intended, right?
yeah. But anyway, I think then that helps us go, hey, now we can start saying, okay, what do we want to do?
Do it as base option, what you have to do minimally to get out there.
Yeah.
And then additional options as funds come available.
Yep.
Right. And that's what I was even gonna mention with the dry side campground. I mean, so if we start with a minimalistic approach with that, I mean, it's gonna be primitive.
Can always
So
add
we have
to.
this- I'm looking at aerial satellite on it. There's a lot of natural tree covering already. And the less, trees are great when you're camping, especially when it's hot. But the less trees you put in, the less it's gonna capture smaller debris as it comes in and floods, and the less we're gonna have to clean
Good point.
around and the whole 9 yards. So, yeah, that's. And I am looking at those buildings that I didn't realize that they were down on the drawing. You had current buildings. I thought those were new buildings on your drawing.
But there is a big berm up there that we saw when we were down there, that you could put, bathrooms or whatever on the stilts, that
Mhm.
they go in the heat all the time, so.
Well, I think one of the things that we all noticed in walking the site as well is, even once you get down below, that levee in itself really separates you from any aspect of being within, the city or your downtown. So it does very much lend itself to that minimalistic approach, still being strategic with how we're approaching it, but without a lot of additional effort, additional funds, I think that can be achieved.
Well, and I've said this a number of times throughout my years here. A lot of people don't even know the river's there.
Yeah.
It's hard to see over that levee.
You don't see it. And if you didn't know those were floodgates down there, you wouldn't even know it. That's why we used to have a regatta here. We had it here 3 years. We gave it 3 years because we thought, well, maybe we keep trying to enhance it, but it just didn't work. Because it's not easy to get people even to the levee, now you can ride your bike up there, but it's just, that goes back to my comment earlier though. I think that's why it's so important for us to figure out aesthetically how to make the dry side so inviting to where people from here are gonna know that, hey, here's our riverfront. And then from the riverfront, hey, here's downtown Lawrenceburg.
Mayor, are you proposing some type of, is it called placemaking or
Wayfinding?
in regards to like a giant Lawrenceburg sign, like where
Yeah.
the clock tower is, that you would be lit up, you would see from the bridge, 275 bridge, or?
I think we need to make sure people know that we're Lawrenceburg.
Yeah.
Don't you think if we had a dock down there, it'd look different? It'd
Oh,
look
even
extravagant,
lighting
something-
down there would look
I
different.
mean, they're gonna see it
If it was lit up on a real well, yeah.
along with the dry side, but the dock that just don't look plain, but look different.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I
Yeah.
mean,
We can paint it
something
purple
that
if you want.
nobody's got around here.
Well, and as a part of, what we can put together as well, we can help take these big ideas and actually put some vision to them, right? Put some dimensions to them, put some materials to them. And maybe it is a brightly lit sign that says Lawrenceburg. Maybe it's something a little bit more toned down a little bit. We can help visualize that as well. So, sharing these ideas and these big picture concepts really gives us some good ground to kind of take and start running for it, especially in regards to, what is the big picture, and then how can we actually make this happen? I think that's going to be one of your lowest hanging fruits. You know, one of your most affordable improvements is how do we create that wayfinding component, that visibility component from a lot of different aspects. So that'll be easier to accomplish than some of these other pieces.
No, you are right. I was talking to a couple guys today, was in council before, when he was talking just about this going on over here and stuff, and they said, you know, we looked and had a bunch of engineering work done and all this. I said, well, why didn't you do it when y'all had that money? Nobody had any answer.
Yeah.
They didn't say why.
It's easy to talk about, you gotta do it. But let me ask, anybody in the audience, if you could, come up to the podium, but if you got any ideas that maybe we're not capturing here, from your times in downtown? I mean, as far as the riverfront? Scott?
Brian knows I got some food steaks. I was gonna say anything to that, was keep quiet,
Oh, go ahead.
He couldn't stop you, could he?
No, he can, he gave me $10 though, so.
Yeah.
So, what I heard and thinking.
Scott McLean, local business owner.
I'm sorry, yeah, owner of Hammerline, is the desire to bring boats, people, which I see as a simple mechanism that's modular, not putting a lot of money in it except for structures, that works right always. And then as you move up the levee, which I sit out there all the time, you keep it clean and simple, but then you put your money up higher up and make it all fancy. That's all I gotta say.
Sure.
On the wet side, Scott, is that what you're proposing? That you would actually you would build permanent structures on the wet side of the levee? Is that what you're proposing?
West side.
The wet side, water side. Or just asking for clarification.
So water side would be
On the river side.
central dock, I think.
And walls and things similar to that is what you're saying
Yeah,
outside.
right, and then as
Which
you
would
move
be
up
wet.
towards the levee, up the levee.
Right.
You keep it clean and simple so you can maintain it, and then do the fancy work up above.
Yeah,
And that brings people in. Anyway, that's my view.
that's good,
Yeah, thank you.
good information, Scott. One thing we'll do next time too is we'll make, plenty of additional copies, so everybody has copies. Michelle, you got anything? Michelle's our executive director of Main Street down here, and,
I just have a question. How come we're adding an additional restaurant? Wouldn't the idea to get people to come on into town?
well, there's a large group of people that like to eat on the river. I've been approached by many people, and I always question these guys when they say, hey, Mayor, I got all these people calling me. I'm talking 20, 30 odd people that want variety, even on the river. And, you know, I'm looking at this structure down there being open longer than what Mike has open now. If we build it correctly, we should be able to open up earlier and close later, and still be able to, the whole thing about staying open later is you can't get down there. You can't get down there easily, and then it's not lit very well. And I think Mike would follow suit too if he's one of the barges that wants to stay restaurants, but I think if you had a second restaurant, I think it would.
When you say later, you mean later in the evening or later in the season?
Season.
Both,
So it can stay open longer in the season?
yeah,
Okay, thanks.
if possible. May not be possible, Michelle, I don't know. Yeah, Brian?
And I think that building the capacity for the second vessel is important. We'll let the market determine it.
That's true, yeah.
You know, so I think the capacity's there to do it. And we hope it happens.
Yeah,
But, you know, we certainly want the capacity there to do that. That goes back to the modular.
that's a good point, yeah, I mean, it's not to say that we'd have to at the very beginning, we don't know. But if somebody approaches us and says, hey, you know, I'd like to buy a barge, and we'll lease you space,
And the connections there, whether a barge is there or not.
yeah. Yeah, build it for the expansion.
You know, and it goes back to too, if you come downtown Lawrenceburg, just even in foot traffic, and you go to prove for another restaurant, and it's busy. But you find out that there's that gateway of the river, and people walk over and they see this and they see the barges, they're more likely to go down there and eat. I know myself, I would.
Probably right.
You know what I mean?
You're probably exactly.
You know,
And
and
they
as,
come back for a beer.
yeah.
Yeah.
As you stated earlier, until people realize what we have down there, they're never gonna go there.
No.
But once you try to do something like this, and word of mouth gets out there, people are gonna come here just for that. Not so much, I don't feel just for the boat traffic, but foot traffic.
Even both ways, I think
Both
you're right.
ways, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, I was
Go
just
ahead.
saying, I think it's been sort of intrinsic to the conversation, but that point, and we're just saying, it's equally as important when we design this and do the programming for it, that it be a way to attract people into Lawrenceburg. So you have a
Absolutely.
view shed that says, oh, yeah, I might drive up on my boat dock there, but then say, oh, wait, what's up this pathway? I kinda wanna go explore a little more, I'm not just coming from the boat every time.
Wayfinding.
Yeah, the wayfinding, I think, you know, Ted would have a different way of phrasing this than me because I'm not a designer, but, you know, do things with your vision that guide your eyes up towards Lawrenceburg, not just through signage, but through the design itself.
Yeah.
As a way of, you know, we talk about these great concepts, maybe that's something else we build into our thinking is, it's a two-way street. You know, it's not just about getting to the boat, it's about how you get back up
Yeah, it's a good way.
in a lot of different ways, so, yeah. So when we talk about placemaking, it's those little things that make you wanna go up the ramp instead of just down it.
Sure.
So that's maybe just trying to summarize kind of what we're hearing.
Yeah.
Whatever, Mike?
So, I just am really excited to see the efforts of American Law and Council, the community, and report after report, study after study, to move forward with prioritizing the Ohio River development. It's real, it's moving forward, continual progress. The city is moving forward with funding outlets for different pieces that are moving forward, that are capable. But, you know, you sit on an asset, you mentioned an underutilized asset. You're at a destination point with the tri-state, not only from the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, tourism draw. You have the Ohio River Recreational Trail, that tourism aspect from the riverfront, development and traction into the area. So you've got local, state, and just, you know, regional significance with this project. It's pretty amazing. I love that you're on board with, you know, what it looks like from the riverfront, from the bridge, as the mayor stated earlier, what it looks like coming into Lawrenceburg, from lighting, wayfinding signage, to experiences along the trail. It's exciting to see the progress, and it's gonna happen. And it's a river city destination in the making.
Could one of you guys climb to the top of the bridge to take a picture of the city of Lawrenceburg and like Photoshop like this into that so we could see it?
Yeah.
We could visualize it.
And then do a nice dive off and see how you land it, yeah.
We could do it with the drone.
Yeah, drone.
Let's get you a drone, yeah.
Yeah, we get that.
We used to jump off of it, yes.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Make sure we get the one that.
Did you say something about a Ferris wheel?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? See, we're going somewhere.
Don't encourage him.
Escort that lady out of here.
My girl.
Yeah.
Mike, what you got?
I really like what I'm hearing, I second what you're saying, like, the timing of all of this just seems like it's coming together, when the Ohio River Recreation Trail ready, the city's readiness for, this project, also kind of needed in Nexus right now, so it's really exciting. A couple things from the Ohio River Recreation Trail Riverside review we did, if you checked out that report, some of the recommendations and strategies in there. I don't want you to, maybe just be aware that there's, an opportunity maybe for paddlers as well on the river instead of just motorboats.
Yep.
And how you kind of incorporate that and
Kayaking and,
of folks into this, as opposed to just power boats.
good point.
And then also support services for either paddlers or power boaters on the river. And maybe that's the market for the second piece of this down the road. You know, somebody's boating on the Ohio River, they're out here, and you might look into that a little bit, where the nearest fueling points on the river, as far as marinas, and, looking to get ice, bait on the river, incorporate, bait, ice, tackle shop, somewhere on the riverfront or as part of this project. I think that you might find that it really becomes a magnet for boats to stop.
Good point.
Yeah, really good.
Very good point.
That's a good point.
Does that, Nancy, does that debris boom, does it sedate the wake at all coming from the boat, like the barges come by? Maybe that's,
I don't think so. It's not like a wave.
It kinda goes with it.
Yeah, it just kind of moves with it. It might do like minimal, and I mean, that could be something that we could look into, isn't it? A wave is weird, but
well, when he's talking about paddleboard, when a barge comes by, they're paddling or, whatever might be out in that area, it can get pretty choppy with some boats.
and that's something that we did look at when we were doing this, was, is it ideal for kayaks and paddle boats and things like that? And current's moving pretty good in there, so, maybe harder, but could be possible.
I didn't know this, but there's already a pretty robust kayak and paddle boat scene here. Like
Yeah.
on the east side of the bridge is that little island. People kayak there and paddle boat there. They camp there, and then right across the street is like a nationally known boat that sank. It's like a Civil War ship. That's yeah, the ghost ship.
Da Vinci was involved in it or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people. So there's a pretty big scene. Whether it's super safe or not, I don't know, but people are into that.
Is that city property where the water naturally goes in next to where we're talking about the primitive campground
That's city property.
inlet? So, I mean,
I don't know.
you do have a couple acres of
Yeah.
a calm lake, essentially, that's in there for paddleboarding and, smaller type of things like that as well, so. Thanks for bringing those points up, Mike.
Anyone up here got anything to add? The only thing I'll say is, Mike, I think you hit on a good, it's timing, right?
Yeah.
Is there ever the right timing to spend a lot of dollars or something? But when you look at what's been going on here in the city, and you guys are a huge part of this, and the people sitting in this room have been, we're just finishing up a pretty big project that we contributed to with the 150 apartments. That's going to be, up to 200 people, additional people downtown. And hopefully, we have the things for them to do down here. But also, I think we're really missing an opportunity a lot of times is for people on boats to explore Lawrenceburg. And I'm not just saying, and Michelle, you made that point, I'm not saying just to stop down there and eat. We gotta develop, we gotta make their eyes go up this way and let them know what's up here, because you know what? We've done a really good job of starting the revitalization, and I say starting because I always tell everybody that, we've always wanted to make Lawrenceburg a destination. We never want to lose track of, the architectural piece of it, the historical piece of it, things like that. We will never lose track of that, but we've always wanted to make this a destination. And everything that we're investing in and have invested in, and I know in the last 6 years or so, and even before that, with the event center, has helped make this that potential destination. You guys know how well attended our events are downtown. I think this is just the next natural enhancement to downtown. And I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Can you guys give us just a ballpark range of what's the process and as far as timing of this? Is this a 2 to 3 year process by the time we obviously, if we said go today and we start engineering, we start feasibilities, we're saying, hey, it's here, we talk to the Corps, obviously that could be a 18 month. Our delta on that could be pretty far.
So if we take the permitting side out of it, I mean, I think we can, if we said go today, I think, I would say we could be designed in 6, 8 months, as long as decisions are made
Yeah, we did talk about the concept of maybe presenting a couple options, so that could maybe add a month there if we have some, you know, if we have some time to think about those and really pick out which elements you want to pursue first and all those things, so, but I think 8 months is on the long side of that with some of those iterations and some of that maybe charretting, or, I don't know if you were planning on having any public input as part of the process, or.
I think that's what the mayor kind of discussed, so.
Yeah, and, you know, all these meetings will be public, and that's where we want people, and we will do a much better job of getting it on social media and inviting the public, but, yeah, we want them to be a part of it.
Right.
So, and if I'm hearing this right, just to paraphrase, I guess, based upon what you've heard tonight, you think you can come back with options. That's an 8-month.
Options, they said they're gonna have
No.
next weekend for us.
No.
That was good.
He's singing after him.
Yeah, yeah.
Next week, always next week. I mean, like, the options, that's gonna take a couple weeks, you know, to
Yeah.
consider more options, but.
And we're not gonna hold you to anything you
Yeah,
say.
but
Right.
once we decide on something like this is the path we're going forward, I mean, I think 6 to 8 months.
It's design time.
Yes.
I got it. I got it.
Now, with the design, does that also mean the Corps of Engineers is gonna
Yeah.
be in,
They'll be in, once we settle on a design, what you guys want,
then you
right?
go to the Corps of Engineers?
Then it'll be up to them to start working and nudging the bear, so to speak. And see, you know, hey, we can do this picture, or can't we do this picture, right, Tom?
Right,
You know, and that's gonna be, you
dream
know.
big.
Won't be no grass on that side.
Well, that's the first
I can
process,
tell you that,
right?
haven't
Well
Yeah, we
seen
gotta
it,
ask
or
them.
something.
No, I mean, the first process is getting approval that this is feasible with Army Corps before you would go to any
Yeah.
engineering.
Well, I
obviously.
think
And
we'll
like I said,
look
unless you do something on the
some
upper
options,
end.
right? And then we would decide, okay, this
Depending
is
on
the
the flood
direction we're gonna
stage.
go. We would do some minimal engineering to make sure we have foundation sizes and where the tie-in points are based on flooding,
Yep.
coastal analysis. Once we have like the framework and we know kind of depths we need to get into the levee and things like that, that's when we start talking to the Corps about, hey, this is what we wanna do, we're planning to do, what are our hurdles, what are we looking at? Is there reviews that need to go on in the Corps before we move forward?
Okay.
Type, that's where negotiations start.
Would it,
There'll be, generally how the Corps works, they have a multi-phase process, so there'll be a phase 1 level of engineering and kind of preliminary, to phase 2, which is your real kind of hardcore
Yep.
engineering aspects of it, so it's all just working through that process once we get the designs really set.
so, can I just make it safe to say that mid-December, we may be able to have the option meeting?
I'd say for that.
We're toward the end of October.
I'd say end of November.
Beginning of December, yeah, Thanksgiving.
Yeah. 6 to 8 weeks.
So we don't have to worry about Thanksgiving. How about the end of October?
So I mean, realistically though, even if we said by the end of the year, we're in 2022, we say, let's go, they start their 6 to 8 month process, working with the Army Corps, we're at the end of 2022 before we're going out to bid. You know, we're gonna be sitting this time of the year, 2022, saying, all right, we're sending it out to bid. By the time we get bids back, you know, when they consider starting, we're in the spring of 2023 to start the project. Hopefully, you know, getting things wrapped up by the spring of 2024.
Yep.
Just so everybody's, we all know that this isn't, they're just not all gonna pull up and go plop, all right, we're open for
Right,
business.
I
right.
don't know, it sounds pretty modular to me.
Yeah.
What's so hard about it?
Yeah.
Mark, I think it's pretty easy.
Yep.
We got a couple flatbeds. We got a-
We're gonna learn.
We'll loan you a flatbed or two. All right. No, I don't have anything else to add. I want to thank you all for coming and
Yeah, greatly appreciate it.
doing your homework, so to speak, and I appreciate everybody's input. And I think this is a good kickoff to a really good project. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the options look like, to be honest. So, all right.
Thank you guys for coming down.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Justin. Second?
Second.
Lenny. All right.
Always
All in
like to be
favor?
the one to say we're getting out of here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Back in about 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, give me 5 minutes. I'll end up the meeting here.
Oh, dear.